Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing you another episode of our Take 10 Challenge, number 19. This wonderful thing called Buy Now, Pay Later. Wonderful? Perhaps not. Before we kick off, there's the disclaimer. Facts and figures, information only. This is not advice. Now, obviously, this new, I'll call it new, it's been around for a while now, but certainly it's new to the baby boomers and so forth, that we haven't grown up with buy now, pay later. But probably for the younger generation, more people are starting to use buy now, pay later than they do effectively on credit card. Effectively, what it boils down to, there's about 20 providers in Australia. Probably the most popular ones would be Afterpay or Zip or Hum. And literally it's just a case of, yes, you're buying something, you're going to pay that off in installments over several weeks, or whether it's a more expensive type thing, might be over a longer period of time, could be a few months or so. But basically it's just a drip feed of repaying whatever the issue you've bought. Now that all sounds okay, and it sounds pretty common to other forms of credit, as we sort of spoke about in the previous session. And it's pretty easy to get, which sometimes can be a bit of a problem. You can apply for it and set up a purchase plan through the provider's app. So you download the app of the provider you want to use there, or go on the website when you're shopping online. If you're going into a shop, in theory, a shop assistant, if they use Afterpay or whatever it might be, they can set up the buy now, pay later application on your behalf. And basically the provider will then contact you later on to let you know that it's been approved. And I say, usually pretty quick and easy sort of process to get it up and running. They would normally need some sort of bank details or your credit card details to associate with that service, so that they will, in the first time, they will probably deduct it from your credit card to sort of put you in front. You may be required to either a deposit or the first instalment up front. But once you're up and running, then from then on, pretty simple, therefore, to just use the app to make a purchase. So far, so good. But like everything, we have the fine print. Now, most of them are advertised, these buy now, pay laters, as interest-free or 0% interest. And you go, well, what can go wrong here? Now, as I've always said, if something sounds too good to be true, it is. Again, a bit like the credit card, where the provider is basically assuming or hoping that you don't pay this thing out within the period that you have chosen. So if you don't pay it on time, then boy oh boy, the costs will soon add up. The late fees, now this is the fee that every time you miss a payment, or you pay your payment just a little bit late, then you get hit with a late fee. And depending on your provider, have a look at what those late fees may be. But the other one that's really interesting that they sort of don't really highlight is the fact that they come generally with a monthly account keeping fee. And some of these services charge you a fixed amount for every month you continue to use the service. And so this can be, add up and add up and add up, like any fee can add up and eat into your, in theory, 0% interest. And there's payment processing fees. So even though this thing might be interest free, that you're not getting charged any interest, then you could indeed be charged a payment. So you may be required to pay a fee for every time you make a payment on top of your set repayment. So in fact, to me, that's interest. I don't know whichever way you want to look at it, but you are indeed repaying more than the cost. So it's actually costing you more. So to me, I think it's false advertising when they say these things are interest free. Well, I suppose in the real term it's not interest, but you are repaying with costs. And to me, that's pretty much the same thing as far as I'm concerned. And so if you're ever going to be using these things and you've got a choice between the providers and so forth, then yep, it's always like everything, check the fees and basically find out what are the fees associated with it, so for any sort of cash withdrawals or missing a repayment, is there a fee for every single transaction, all those sort of things to see, how often am I going to use this, what do I really believe that my costs indeed would be, which are going to be the highest sort of going to be the highest fee and cost, and then compare it to the other providers there. And as I said, though most providers don't charge interest, some will charge it after the initial interest-free period. And look at the percentage there. Rates can be high, in some instances up to 29%. Starting to make credit cards look pretty good. 29%. It's looking like a payday lender at that sort of rate. Where's the mafia in all of this? Minimum repayments. If the old story, if the minimum repayments are unlikely to repay the loan, so if they say, yeah, there's your minimum repayment, make sure that it's not, is by just paying the minimum repayment actually going to repay this thing in the interest-free period. But to me, that's a bit of a con job. They should sort of say the minimum repayment will indeed get you paid out with the interest-free period. But no, it's just an amount that they've decided, yep, this is the smallest amount of money you're allowed to pay, but they don't sort of indicate that just by paying that amount that you are indeed going to then incur interest. So I just find this whole thing a little bit of a con job from that point of view. But I suppose it's like anything. If you use it correctly, you know what you're in for, and used it in the manner that in theory they're advertising it as, rather than all these hidden sort of costs and whatever, it could be an appropriate thing. But I say, if we can avoid debt at any expense, unless it really, really makes sense to do so, then generally speaking, we're going to be better off. And of course, these interest-free products, it's still like a loan, and it can be recorded on your credit history. So if you really do stuff this up and you find yourself in a bit of a pickle, yep, for sure, it'll appear on your record of what sort of person you are at repaying loans. So be cautious of overusing and then not repaying what you're supposed to. It's the usual sort of story that don't get yourself into a hassle. But of course, if you do, then understand what rights you do indeed have. Now, you've got less legal protection with a buy now, pay later than you would have had using a credit card or a personal loan, simply because of the way these things are set up. So there's a step. If you think you're going to get yourself into a problem, don't do it. But if you think you're going to get yourself into a problem, you've got more protection with a credit card. Now, if you do run into issues, the schemes are not required by law to help you if you run into trouble. So there's nothing you can sort of do and go back to them and say, guys, I'm in a bit of a hassle here. They don't have to help you. And of course, the service can still legally list a non-payment as a default, as we said before in your credit report. So it's, you really haven't got a lot of rights there from that point of view. But if you want to return a product, well, then do it as soon as possible, so that a refund can be allowed. Just because you bought it on buy now, pay later, you've always still got the same ability to return something if it doesn't do what you're supposed to be doing with it. So anyway, it's a case of the old buyer beware, understand the small print, stick to the rules, do it within the interest-free period, and keep yourself out of trouble. But to me, I think we're going to see a lot more issues around buy now, pay later as more and more and more people start to use this and abuse how it all works. We're here to help, making a booking, but we'll talk again on another session.